I did a little something different this week, and we've got two players, and they both share the same last name on the Bengals roster. Two very different positions, but the samples, Drew Sample and Cam Sample. And it's not so much that I am predicting they are going to break out, John, and it's not that I'm asking the question breakout or bust. I'm saying it's a proclamation. It's either going to be a breakout year or a bust year for Drew Sample and Cam Sample. Now, Drew Sample, I believe it was a one-year contract, kind of a minimal investment. Cam Sample was a fourth-round pick in 2021. And so here's the thing with both of these guys now, with the first, who do we want to start with? You want to start with Drew? Because I've got videos for both. You want to start with Drew? Okay, let's start with Drew. So with both of them, there's differing expectations. Sample kind of had a higher profile role in year 2 than he did in year 1. So that we'll talk about that. But Drew Sample is a guy that we've been waiting to break out and hoping would be breaking out pretty, ever since he joined the team in 2019. Was not a popular pick at the time because people felt it was a bit of a reach, but the Bengals did need some tight end help. Tyler Eifert was, kind of hurt and all kinds of stuff towards the end of his career there. And so they needed some extra help. And now they've done a lot of different things with Drew Sample. They've, played him in the traditional tight end and right outside the tackle. He's played some H-back. He's done a lot of different things here. You can see, John, here are some of the stats just so we know. 58 receptions, 40 of them were in 2020 alone. The touchdown was in 2020 as well. Don't know why this stopped here. Let's try that again. The touchdown was in 2020. The yards, 458, 349 of those was in 2020. And the long reception, just 23 yards. You see the PFF scores ranging from low 50s all the way to low 60s, and that is in chronological order, overall PFF scores. Here's the thing with him, that year in 2020, that was, CJ Uzama, I think, only played in 2 games or so that year. So he was actually kind of a little bit of an outlet for Joe Burrow as a rookie going forward in that year. So, a guy that when you look at, I don't know why this keeps freezing on me. I apologize. We'll get to some of the clips here, but he's a guy that was as a receiver. He was a guy that was kind of a little bit of an outlet when things broke down and, or off of play action, just a little, designed tight end flat route. That is kind of where he was asked to do some things in the offense. And so what happened is obviously some injuries, obviously some usage issues. And then the Bengals kind of said, well, we can't wait around for this to kind of keep coming to fruition. So they've used these veteran 1-year deals on guys like Hayden Hurst and Irv Smith. And now he's kind of been down the pecking order a little bit. However, this year, the Bengals did not invest heavily in tight end in either free agency or the draft. And he was kind of one of the guys. Now maybe final cuts will bring something different. That's where Devin Asiasi came in last year. But right now they're showing a bit of, faith in Drew Sample to do something in this offense, whether it's as an H-back, primarily a blocker, maybe a passing outlet as well. I'm going to try and cue up that video in just a second here again. But that's kind of where things are at with Drew Sample. And it's one of those things where he's kind of at a career crossroads.
So the things that Drew has going for him is that traditionally tight end is a second contract position. Like only like the really, really good ones produce their first handful of years in the league. And it's almost like smarter to just not really invest in that position from a draft standpoint and just wait until those guys are on their second contracts. And that's where I mean, this is technically Drew Sample's second contract. He's 27, I think maybe going to be 28 this year. Maybe he's just 27. So he's in that tight end prime of his career, if you will. But I mean, the role for him, it just seems kind of limited because I mean, this offense is still 11 personnel, and he's not the starter. It's Irv Smith until something, if something happens to Irv Smith, and that's like I guess another positive because the starter in front of him has a history of injuries, particularly over the past couple of years, and that was the reason why Irv Smith could have been had for barely more than what Drew Sample signed for this year. They're spending nothing at tight end for various different reasons. And Irv Smith, if everything goes well, is going to have a productive year at tight end because there's been nothing but praise for his athleticism and his natural catching ability and just a different kind of tight end compared to Hayden Hurst and CJ Uzama. And they know who Drew Sample is at this point. Like there wasn't a ton that he showed in 2020, aside from those brief moments that you mentioned where, that offense was kind of a discombobulated mess, but Drew Sample was at least a decent option as a check down option because he can't really stretch the field that much. Where he could have his most biggest impact, though, Anthony, is probably in run blocking. And I think that's another thing that he has going for him because I think there's a bigger emphasis this year for the Bengals offense in trying to get the under center run game working. And that may include more 12 personnel looks, and it may include more run blocking reps for Drew Sample along with Irv Smith to kind of get the run game kind of going, because once that happens, that opens up more opportunities for explosive plays down the field. If you can diversify your offense to the point where defenses can't key in on if it's a run or a pass based off of where, if you're under center into the shotgun, that just makes your offense better. And it would be nice to have two tight ends who can be on the field at all times and can be competent in that sense. And if that is Drew Sample, that's great. And then they can go forward and see what they want to do with him next year. But so far, obviously not. I mean, this is, kind of belabor the point with him. He was never really worth that second round pick, but, in the brief moments that he's had the chance to, create some yards after the catch and just be a decent blocker, he's been that. And especially for an offense that, again, had a lot of pass protection issues, he's also done some work in that area. So he's a nice guy to have around. I don't know if they really expected him to be a significant contributor, but with the way that the offseason kind of ended up, that's kind of the role that he has right now.
Yeah, you can see a lot of flat stuff, a lot of short stuff here. This is probably the best 5-yard reception I've ever seen, just right out of the flat. The nice one-hander there against the Cleveland Browns. Here it is in slow-mo again for folks. Check this out. This is pretty sweet. So see the nice extension there. Here's a couple of things with him blocking. I think I've slowed a couple of these down. Here he is pushing, I believe it's Micah Parsons out of the way there. It's not a big gain, but pushes him out of the way. Here he is I believe he's on the far outside or maybe inside, right next to Jonah. He's inside. That's Hurst getting beat on the outside. So he's inside and he holds his own against number 6 there against the Cowboys. And that's a play for Mixon. That's, I guess, pass pro or a little swing pass here. And watch this block to spring. This is week 1 of last year. Boom, nice block in the hole, and that's a 37 yard run or so from Mixon against the Steelers in week 1. You got to love that he springs that play from the hole there. So obviously we kind of cherry pick some of the nice plays and everything from Drew Sample and a lot of these guys when we do these videos, but that's kind of the reality of it. We kind of try and highlight some of the things that they do well and why they may break out. So I apologize for the delay on that video there, but you kind of see some of the things, and where I see him be his best as a pass catcher is when Burrow's, it's kind of, I hate to say it, it's either kind of a last resort option when things are breaking down and other guys aren't open. He just kind of drops the ball to him and they get a couple of nice yards out of it, or it's designed kind of, bootleg play action, throw it again, backside on the play where he can kind of scramble and use blocks that are set up for him. So a guy that, again, I don't know what to expect because there were some nice moments in 2020, even with Joe Burrow getting hurt. Some of the stats, are there, but that's also when CJ Uzama got hurt, and there's only one touchdown to speak of in his entire career here. So I think if he's able to provide a boost in the blocking game, both pass protection and run blocking, and then be that occasional outlet when things kind of break down as an additional pass catching option, I think you take that, particularly as the contract with the contract that he currently signed.
Yeah, anything that he can provide that's even slightly more than what he's been in recent years is a surplus, considering the fact that they just don't have a ton of depth. I know someone mentioned in the comments like their third tight end probably isn't on the roster right now. I think that's the position we're going to circle at final cuts when they're kind of observing the waiver wire, and of course they're like 29th or whatever in the order this year, so they might have slim pickings. But they were 31st last year, and they ended up getting Devin Asiasi, who I think it was like a third round pick. So at the time, it was like, oh, okay, this guy's a notable player, and obviously, Asiasi is essentially just a different version of True Sample, more or less the same skill set. So it's there's not a ton of depth at that spot, and there might be a tight end that kind of challenges Drew Sample to his role, and maybe that just only accelerates the boom or bust potential year that he has this year.
Yeah, I mean, Irv Smith would have been the low hanging fruit a little bit to go with the potential breakout. I think, as the starting guy, we have high expectations there, but as you said, the health is kind of a factor. Let's